We know that vast numbers of people in the world today do not have access to clean, pure drinking water. Many of them don't have access to anything that they could drink at all. But even those who do have polluted water. It needs to be purified so that it can be fit for use. And we purify it, for example, by passing it through filters, but that doesn't deal with all the purification. You ultimately need to pass it under a bright ultraviolet lamp so that that purifies it as far as we possibly can. Now, the question that we need to look at today is this: what can purify to the ultimate degree? What can render human beings most thoroughly purified? Because that is the topic that we need to address when we think about Imam Ali and also the other members of the Ahl al-Bayt. We turn then to a particular episode in the life of the Prophet, and we are told that he was wrapped in a large cloak or a blanket, and then he called under that blanket to join him Ali, Fatima, Hassan, and Hussein. So there were 5 under the blanket, and only 5. And he wrapped the cloak or the blanket around them. We know that this was happening when one of the wives of the Prophet was also present, called Salama. And she asked the Prophet, "Can I join you also under the blanket?" And the Prophet responded, "Your great honor is to be one of my wives, but this honor is not for you. This honor is reserved for the 5 who are now under the blanket." And when these 5 were under the blanket, a verse of the Quran was revealed. And this verse tells us that God wishes to purify with the most thorough purification those who are under the blanket at this time. And it calls them the Ahl al-Bayt, the household of the Prophet. Now, who is under the blanket? The Prophet himself, of course, Ali and Fatima, and their 2 sons, Hassan and Hussein. And it is these 5 of whom God speaks and says, "I wish to purify them with the most thorough purification." So here we can see the answer to our question about purification. Because only the ultimately good God, only the ultimately pure God, can purify to an ultimate degree, can purify in the most thorough way. And this is the way in which that verse is understood within the Shia tradition. It is a reference to these 5, the original 5 members of the Ahl al-Bayt, who are purified to the most thorough degree. What does this purification mean? It means that they are rendered masum. Masum, I understand to be without sin. Without sin and therefore without error. Now, they are human beings. Therefore, they are capable of sin like all human beings. And yet, this most thorough purification by the only one who can give a thorough purification, namely God, purifies them so that they do not sin. If they do not sin, they do not commit error. They do not err when they are teaching, when they are speaking. Whatever they do or they say is in perfect harmony and obedience to the command of God. So in this case, then, we can see that the command of God is that these 5 people should be the basis, the foundation for that family, which, in sheer understanding, is to be the leaders of the community from that time onwards. That is the Ahl al-Bayt, the descendants of Ali and Fatima. Now, after the death of Fatima, Ali marries again, but the children of that marriage are not included. The Prophet has other wives. None of the wives are included. So it is this most particular family, remembering that Ali, the Imam, bearing the imamate from the time of his birth, as it evolves and develops and he understands more and more what it is involved, and we understand that he carries within him always that light of prophethood. And Fatima, whose marriage to Ali was made in heaven, it was according to the divine decree, but whose very conception was through divine intervention after the visit of the Prophet into the presence of God. And when those two come together, then you have the light from the Prophet and you have the light of imamate, and together they of course produce their 2 sons, Hassan and Hussein, who are to be the 2nd and 3rd imams in that line after Ali himself. And that light then continues down through all the members of the Ahl al-Bayt. Now, for Ithnashri, for 12 Shia, there are only 14 masum. There are 14 members of that community who are purified in the most thorough way by God, in order that they can be the guardians, the teachers, the interpreters, the guides for the community from that time onwards. And it is those people, the Prophet, his daughter Fatima, and then the 12 imams down through the succession, who are the masum and who are to be regarded as designated by God, given the most thorough purification, so that they may be the guardians and guides of the community from that time onwards. Now again, we can see that verse of the Quran which tells us when God and his messenger decide upon a thing, the faithful man or woman has no choice but to obey. So as the Shia scholars have understood this, it is that God has clearly designated succession in the line of Ali and Fatima. This is God speaking, and therefore there is no room for others to disagree from what God has decreed. We can see then the strength of that Shia scholarly tradition, which is saying that the Ahl al-Bayt are raised above the normal run of humankind. They are human, yes, but they are of the highest spiritual excellence, most thoroughly purified by God, in order that they can carry out this unique duty and responsibility to guide the rest of humankind on the right path, the path that leads to paradise.